Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Bruce Dawson. I was 44 years old when I learned one sentence could save me from the biggest mistake of my life. At the time, I owned a home renovation company. We specialized in high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels. I had 3 project managers running the crews, which meant I wasn't swinging a hammer every day anymore. I spent most mornings checking job sites, approving estimates, and making sure everything stayed on schedule. Life was steady. I thought it was about to get even better. I had been engaged to Tiffany Collins for 11 months. We had been together for nearly 4 years, and our wedding was exactly 3 weeks away. Most of the planning was finished. The venue was booked. The honeymoon was paid for. Half our furniture had already been moved into my house. The week before she left, Tiffany kissed me while we packed her suitcase. "It'll only be 5 days," she said. "It's just one last girl's trip before I become a wife." I smiled. "Enjoy yourself, then come home so we can get married." She laughed. "I always do." The trip was to Cancun, Mexico, with 3 friends from work. The first day she sent pictures of the beach. The second day she barely answered. By the third day, every conversation felt rushed. "I'll call you later," she'd say. Later never came. I noticed, but I didn't chase. If someone wanted space, I gave it to them. Friday evening, I was sitting on my back patio going over invoices when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. The message stopped me cold. "I've had my fun. Now I'm ready to be a wife." I read it twice, then a third time. There wasn't a single question in my mind about what she meant. People don't describe sightseeing or drinking margaritas as having their fun before becoming a wife. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence settle. Then I typed one sentence. "Don't come home expecting a wedding." I hit send. Less than 30 seconds later, my phone started ringing. Tiffany. I watched it vibrate across the table until it stopped. It rang again. I ignored that one too. Then another message came through. "Bruce, that's not what I meant. Please answer." I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop. The wedding venue answered on the second ring. "This is Michael." "Michael?" I said calmly. "This is Bruce Dawson. I need to cancel my wedding reservation." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." By midnight, the venue was canceled. The caterer was canceled. The photographer was canceled. The honeymoon reservation was canceled. When I finally went to bed, I wasn't wondering whether Tiffany would explain herself. I was deciding how long it would take to change every lock on my house before her flight landed Sunday afternoon. By 8 o'clock Saturday morning, a locksmith had finished replacing every lock on my house. I changed the garage code, disabled Tiffany's access to the security system, packed every box she'd brought over during the past year. Clothes, shoes, cosmetics, picture frames. Everything went into my detached garage. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was thrown away. It just wasn't staying inside my house. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. It was Tiffany. This time, she left a voicemail. "Bruce, please answer. You're overreacting. We need to talk before you do something stupid." I deleted it without listening a second time. An hour later, another voicemail arrived. "I'll explain everything when I get home." I deleted that one too. If the explanation only came after getting caught, I wasn't interested. Sunday afternoon came. Her flight landed just after 3. At 4:30, my doorbell rang. I looked through the camera. Tiffany stood on the porch wearing sunglasses, dragging 2 expensive suitcases behind her. She looked relaxed, confident, like she expected one difficult conversation before everything returned to normal. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway. She smiled. "There you are." I didn't smile back. "The wedding's canceled." Her smile disappeared. "What?" "You heard me." She laughed nervously. "Bruce, stop. I'm not joking. You actually canceled it?" "Every part of it." She stared at me. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious." She took one step forward. "Can I come inside?" "No." Her eyebrows pulled together. "Bruce, this is my home too." "No, it was going to be." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she sighed. "The text wasn't what you think." I folded my arms. "Then tell me what it meant." She hesitated. "I was just saying I had fun on vacation." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Then why didn't you write that?" I don't know." "No," she frowned. "What do you mean, no?" "I asked you a simple question. What exactly was the fun?" She looked away. "The beach, the clubs, spending time with my friends." I nodded once. So why did you send that sentence instead of saying you couldn't wait to come home? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer. I made a bad joke. I shook my head. No, Tiffany. Bad jokes get explained immediately. You spent 24 hours trying to think of an explanation. Her face tightened. You're being paranoid. Before I could answer, another voice came from the driveway. Tiffany? We both turned. One of her co-workers, Jessica Monroe, had just pulled up. She climbed out of her SUV carrying a beach bag Tiffany had accidentally left behind. Jessica smiled at first. Then she noticed the suitcases, the tension, the untouched engagement ring still on Tiffany's hand. Jessica said awkwardly. Tiffany's eyes widened. Jessica, now isn't a good time. Jessica looked between us. I just wanted to bring your bag. She handed it over. As Tiffany grabbed it, a small envelope slipped from one of the side pockets onto my front porch. Neither woman moved. I picked it up. The front had a name written on it. John. I turned it over. A photo slid out. Tiffany and a man I didn't recognize, standing on a beach together, both of them smiling. I looked at Jessica. She swallowed. Bruce, Tiffany told you, didn't she? Jessica closed her eyes for a second. I thought she'd tell you herself. That was all I needed. I turned back to Tiffany. Who is John? She didn't answer. I asked you a question. Her voice dropped. It wasn't serious. I gave a short laugh. I didn't ask if it was serious. Another silence. Then she whispered it. It happened once. Jessica quietly backed toward her SUV, realizing she shouldn't be there. I looked at Tiffany one last time. Take your things. Bruce, we're done. Please don't throw away 4 years over one mistake. I stepped back inside. You threw it away in Mexico. Then I closed the door. I heard her knocking for another 10 minutes. I never opened it again. Monday morning, I met with my attorney before I went to my office. Not because we were married, because untangling a life together before a wedding could still become messy. Tiffany's name wasn't on my house, but we'd signed contracts together for the wedding. Some deposits were refundable, others weren't. I wanted everything settled before emotions got involved. My attorney, Laura Bennett, flipped through the paperwork. You did the right thing by canceling immediately, she said. The longer you waited, the more expensive this would have become. I don't plan on changing my mind, she nodded. I figured as much. By lunchtime, every vendor had been contacted. The financial damage wasn't nearly as bad as I expected. Losing a few deposits was a cheap price compared to marrying the wrong person. That afternoon, I stopped by one of my renovation projects across town. The electricians were finishing rough wiring, and I walked the house with my project manager. As I left, I noticed a small coffee shop across the street I'd somehow never visited. I walked in. The woman behind the counter looked up. Morning? Little late for morning, I said. She smiled. Fair enough. What can I get you? Black coffee. She poured it without asking another question. When she handed me the cup, she noticed the unopened wedding magazine sticking out of the folder under my arm. Tough week? I looked down at it. I guess you could say that. She didn't ask for details. Instead, she nodded toward the pastry case. First cinnamon rolls on the house. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because people having a rough week usually don't need 20 questions. I actually smiled. That's a pretty good business strategy. I'm Emily Foster. Bruce Dawson. Nice to meet you, Bruce. I stayed exactly 5 minutes before heading back to work. Nothing more. Just good coffee and someone who knew when not to pry. That evening, my sister, Claire Dawson, came over carrying takeout. She had always been the kind of person who skipped small talk. She set the food on the kitchen counter. So, she said, she cheated. Yeah. You taking her back? No, Claire smiled. Good. I laughed. That's all you've got? What else is there to say? She opened a container of noodles. A woman who loves you doesn't send a message like that. I nodded. I know. She studied me for a moment. You seem calmer than I expected. I already made my decision. That's why. After dinner, Claire helped me move Tiffany's remaining boxes into a storage unit I'd rented for 30 days. If she doesn't pick this stuff up, Claire asked, I'll donate it. You really aren't leaving the door open. I locked the storage unit. No. 2 days later, my phone buzzed while I was reviewing blueprints. It wasn't Tiffany. It was Jessica. Her message was short. Bruce, there's something you should know. The trip wasn't the beginning. Mexico was just the first time Tiffany stopped hiding it. I called her immediately. Jessica answered on the first ring. You better not be wasting my time. I'm not. She sounded nervous. I shouldn't even be telling you this. Then tell me. Jessica took a deep breath. The guy in Mexico, John, Tiffany had been talking to him online for almost 5 months. 5 months. That meant she had been planning another man while choosing wedding invitations with me. Jessica continued quietly. They met twice before the trip at real estate conferences in Phoenix. Mexico was supposed to be the first time they'd spend several days together. I looked out the office window. Everything suddenly made sense. The late-night phone calls, the smile every time her phone lit up, the way she'd insisted on taking that girl's vacation. It had never been a girl's trip. It had been a test drive for another life. Jessica spoke again. I'm sorry, Bruce. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I deleted Tiffany's contact from my phone. For the first time since this started, I wasn't angry. I was certain. There wasn't a relationship left to save. There had only been a wedding I was smart enough not to walk into. Over the next 2 months, I settled into a routine. Work started before sunrise, job sites during the day, paperwork in the evening. If I had extra time, I'd stop at Emily's coffee shop. It became a habit, nothing more. She'd already have a black coffee waiting when I walked in. You renovating another mansion today? She'd ask. Trying to. Don't let rich people convince you white marble is practical. It keeps me employed. She'd laugh, and I'd head back to work. There was never any pressure. No flirting, no awkward questions about Tiffany, just easy conversation. It was exactly what I needed. Tiffany, on the other hand, refused to disappear. She started with emails, then handwritten letters, then flowers left on my porch. Every message sounded the same. I made one mistake. Please don't throw us away. We belong together. I ignored everyone. One Friday afternoon, she finally cornered me. I had just finished inspecting a remodel when I saw her leaning against my truck in the parking lot. She stood up the moment she saw me. We need to talk. We really don't. You won't answer my calls. I blocked your number. Her jaw tightened. Bruce, stop treating me like I'm your enemy. I unlocked my truck but didn't open the door. You became my problem the moment you chose another man. It wasn't like that. Then tell me how it was. She hesitated. He made me feel exciting. I nodded slowly. So you traded your fiancé for excitement. I thought I could get it out of my system before we got married. I stared at her. You actually believe that's better? I came back, didn't I? There it is. She frowned. What? The part you still don't understand. She folded her arms. I chose you. No, I shook my head. You came back because he didn't choose you. Her face changed, just for a second. Enough. I had guessed. Now I knew. John dumped you. She looked away. It wasn't that simple. It was exactly that simple. She stepped closer. I was scared. No, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I pointed toward the passenger side of my truck. You gambled our future because you thought you found something better. Tears filled her eyes. I was coming home to marry you. I know. And? And that's the problem. She looked confused. You thought marrying me after sleeping with someone else was some kind of favor. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. At that moment, another pickup pulled into the lot. Emily climbed out carrying 2 cardboard trays filled with coffee. She smiled when she saw me. I figured your crew could use caffeine. Then she noticed Tiffany. The smile faded. Bad time? Not at all, I said calmly. Emily walked over and handed me one of the cups. Extra black. Thanks. Tiffany looked between us. Who's she? Emily answered before I could. I'm Emily. She offered a polite smile. I own the coffee shop across from Bruce's Oak Street project. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. You two seeing each other? Emily looked at me. I answered. That's none of your business. Tiffany's voice rose. So you've already replaced me? I didn't even blink. You replaced yourself. Silence. Cars rolled through the parking lot around us. Nobody spoke. Finally, I opened my truck door. This conversation's over. Bruce, you wanted excitement. I got into the driver's seat. I wanted loyalty. I started the engine. You should have figured out those two things aren't usually found in the same person. I drove away. In the mirror, I watched Tiffany standing alone in the parking lot. Emily climbed back into her truck and followed me toward the job site. Neither of us said much that afternoon. We didn't need to. Some chapters don't end with shouting. Sometimes they end with one person realizing the door they slammed behind them was locked from the other side. Winter arrived, and business was better than ever. We had more renovation projects booked than at any point since I started the company. I promoted one of my foremen to project manager, which gave me more freedom to step away from work without everything depending on me. Life felt lighter, not because Tiffany was gone, because the chaos she brought with her was gone. Emily and I still saw each other almost every day. It happened naturally. One evening, she locked up the coffee shop and found me loading tools into my truck. "You eaten yet?" she asked. "Not unless beef jerky counts." "It doesn't," she smiled. "I know a diner that's still open." Dinner turned into 2 hours of conversation. She told me she'd opened the coffee shop after her parents retired. I told her about starting my company with one pickup truck and a borrowed trailer. She never asked about my money, never asked about my house, never asked what I could give her. She only wanted to know who I was. 3 months later, we officially started dating. We kept it quiet. No social media, no announcements. The people who mattered would find out when they found out. One afternoon, Claire walked into my office carrying coffee. "So," she said with a grin. "Emily, what about her?" "I like her." "So do I." Claire laughed. "I haven't seen you smile this much in years." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. "Bruce." Tiffany's voice came through immediately. "I know you blocked me." "I did. So don't hang up. You've got 30 seconds. She took a shaky breath. "I've been thinking." "I believe you. I made the biggest mistake of my life." "I know. I want another chance." "There isn't one. You haven't even heard what I came to say." "I don't need to. I'm different now." I leaned back in my chair. "No, Tiffany. I am." "No." Silence. Then she asked quietly, "How can you be so sure?" "Because people who change don't spend months trying to erase consequences." She didn't answer. I continued. "You don't miss me." "I do." "You miss the life you threw away." Her breathing caught. "You've got that coffee shop girl now." I smiled to myself. "You've been asking about me?" "I've heard things." "I bet you have." I just—" Her voice cracked. "I thought after a while you'd calm down." There it was. The sentence that explained everything. She never believed I'd actually leave. She assumed time would weaken my resolve. It had done the opposite. "You underestimated me." "I loved you." "If you loved me, Mexico would have been a vacation." Another long silence. Finally, she whispered, "John left 2 weeks after we got back." "I know." "You knew?" "I know a lot more than you think." She began crying. "I lost everything." I kept my voice even. "No. You traded everything." I ended the call. The next weekend, Emily invited me to meet her parents. They welcomed me like they'd known me for years. Driving home afterward, she reached across the center console and took my hand. "You've been quiet." "I was just thinking." "About Tiffany?" I shook my head. "No." "What then?" "How peaceful life feels when you're with the right person." Emily smiled without looking away from the road. "I was hoping you'd say that." A month later, I sold my old house. Too many memories, too many ghosts. Emily and I bought a place outside town with a large workshop behind it. Standing in the empty living room on moving day, I looked around and realized something. For the first time since that text from Mexico, I wasn't rebuilding anymore. I was simply living. Almost a year passed. The wedding date that never happened came and went without either of us mentioning it. Emily and I had built something solid. No games, no guessing. If something bothered one of us, we talked about it that day. One Saturday morning, I was assembling shelves in the workshop behind our new house when Emily stepped into the doorway holding a small white envelope. "You should probably look at this." I wiped the sawdust off my hands. "What is it?" She smiled. "I figured you'd want to open it." Inside was a sonogram. For a second, I just stared at it. Then I looked back at her. "Seriously?" She nodded, smiling wider. 12 weeks. I pulled her into a hug. "You just made this the best day I've had in years." She laughed. "I was hoping you'd say that." Life kept moving. Then, 3 weeks later, the past found my address. I pulled into the driveway after checking a job site and immediately recognized the silver SUV parked outside the gate. Tiffany stepped out before I even shut off my truck. She looked different, less polished, less confident, like life had finally stopped giving her easy answers. "I've been waiting," she said. "I can see that." I just want 5 minutes. You've got 2. She nodded. I've done a lot of thinking. I imagine you have. I know why everything happened. I folded my arms. Enlighten me. I kept chasing excitement. And? I didn't realize peace was worth more. I looked at her without saying a word. She continued. I've spent the last year trying to fix myself. I hope you have. I have. She stepped closer. I know we can't erase what happened. We can't. But maybe, she hesitated. Maybe we could start over. I actually smiled. Not because it was funny. Because she still didn't understand. Tiffany. What? There isn't a starting point anymore. I know you're seeing someone. I'm not just seeing someone. She frowned. What does that mean? Before I answered, the front door opened. Emily walked onto the porch carrying a basket of folded baby clothes. She was wearing one of my old work shirts. Her pregnancy was impossible to miss now. She smiled when she saw me. I found the rest of the newborn clothes. Then she noticed Tiffany. Emily looked at me. You okay? I'm fine. She walked over and slipped her hand into mine without saying another word. Tiffany's eyes dropped to Emily's stomach. Every bit of color disappeared from her face. She whispered, You're having a baby. Yes, I said. We are. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Tiffany looked back at me. You've really moved on. I moved forward. Tears filled her eyes. I know what you thought. She swallowed hard. I thought if I gave you enough time, you'd forgive me. I shook my head. You never lost me because of one vacation. She looked confused. You lost me because you believed I'd always be waiting. Emily squeezed my hand. I continued. You weren't looking for a husband. What do you mean? You were looking for a backup plan. That hit harder than anything else I'd said. I could see it in her face. Because it was true. She lowered her head. I'm sorry, Bruce. I believe you. She looked up hopefully. But being sorry doesn't rebuild trust. I opened the gate. I genuinely hope your life gets better. She nodded slowly. Then she turned around, got into her SUV, and drove away. Neither Emily nor I watched her leave. There wasn't any reason to. 6 months later, Emily and I were married. We didn't book a ballroom. We didn't spend a fortune trying to impress people we barely knew. A close friend let us use the garden behind his house. About 30 people came, family, close friends, a few employees who had been with me since the company's early days. Claire stood beside me as my best woman. Emily's father walked her down the aisle. Everything about the day felt honest. No pretending, no performance, just 2 people choosing each other. 3 months after the wedding, our son, Noah James Dawson, was born. The first time I held him, every late night, every canceled contract, every hard decision suddenly made sense. I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was looking at everything I'd gained. Claire came to the hospital carrying balloons. She looked at Noah and laughed. You know, what? If Tiffany hadn't sent that stupid text, this little guy wouldn't exist. I smiled. I've thought about that. She patted my shoulder. Funny how life works. Business kept growing. I opened a 4th renovation division and stepped even farther away from the day-to-day work. My project managers handled almost everything. That gave me something money couldn't buy. Time. Time with Emily. Time with Noah. Time for a life I actually wanted to live. Almost a year after Noah was born, I stopped at a grocery store on my way home. As I reached for a carton of milk, I heard someone say my name. Bruce. I turned around. Tiffany. She looked older than I remembered. Not because of age, because disappointment has a way of showing itself. She noticed Noah sitting in the shopping cart. He's beautiful. Thank you. I heard you got married. I did. She nodded. I'm glad things worked out for you. I appreciate that. She looked like she wanted to say more. Instead, she asked quietly, Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't gone to Mexico? I answered honestly, No. Her eyebrows lifted. Not anymore. She looked down for a moment. I think about it every day. I believed her, but it didn't change anything. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. She gave me a sad smile. I had it. Neither of us spoke after that. There wasn't anything left to say. I wished her well and walked toward the checkout without looking back. That evening, Emily and I sat on our back porch while Noah slept inside. The sun was setting behind the trees, and the only sound was the wind moving through the yard. Emily rested her head on my shoulder. You seem thoughtful. I was remembering something. What? The text. She laughed softly. The famous text? Yeah, Emily smiled. Best message you ever received? I looked toward the house where our son was sleeping. Years earlier, I would have called it the worst message of my life. Now, I knew better. It saved me, I said. Emily looked at me. I almost married someone who saw commitment as something she could put on hold whenever a better opportunity came along. She squeezed my hand. And instead, I smiled. Instead, I found someone who never made me compete for my own place in her life. That was the difference. Tiffany wanted the freedom to chase excitement and expected stability to be waiting when she came back. Emily chose me from the beginning, every single day. Looking back, canceling that wedding wasn't the hardest decision I ever made. It was the smartest. Sometimes a man doesn't win by fighting for a relationship. Sometimes he wins by having the strength to walk away before it becomes a marriage he'll spend years trying to escape. Thank you for watching.